Thank you, Annie and Moby, for teaching us so much about science tools. Now, scientists, yes, I mean you, kindergarten scientists, we're going to do a little movement activity. So I want you to stand up behind your chair. I'm going to do these movements with you. Push your chair in and stand right behind it. See, my chair is pushed in and I'm standing right behind it. Okay. We are going to pretend to be some science tools. That's right, we're going to turn ourselves into science tools. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, so the first tool we'll turn ourselves into is a hand lens. So stand really straight. Now let me see, hold on a second. Okay, now stand really straight and bring your arms up into a circle. And now look, you're a hand lens. What is a hand lens used for? Think about that. Oh, you're right. A hand lens is used to look at things up really close. It's used to magnify something. In fact, another word for a hand lens is a magnifying lens. Let's see what tool we'll turn ourselves into next. Oh, a ruler. Can you bring your arms way up? Make yourself as straight as a ruler. What is a ruler used for? Think about that. Oh, a ruler, you're right. It's used for measuring the length, the width, or the height of an object. Let's see what our next tool is. Ooh, this is a beaker. Can you turn yourself into a beaker? Let's see, how will we do this? How about hands straight at our sides, and we'll bring our legs out. Now, there are many, many types of beakers. They don't all look like this, as we saw in our Brainpop Jr video, but we're being the beaker today. Now, what is a beaker used for? Do you remember? Moby got a little bit confused with this one, but a beaker is used for measuring volume. And by volume, we don't mean turning the music up on your radio. We don't mean that type of volume. We mean the amount of liquid. Okay, now, since you are scientists, I want you to pretend to put on your safety equipment because scientists wear safety equipment. So first, would you put on your goggles? Why do we wear goggles? Yes, goggles help us to protect our eyes. Now, next, would you put on your gloves, your imaginary gloves? Why might we wear gloves? What do you think? To protect our hands? By golly, you're right. And what about a lab coat? Can you put your lab coat on? Pretend to put your lab coat on. Zip it up or button it up. Why might we wear a lab coat? Oh, you're right. Sometimes when we're working in science, we might get a little messy. So scientists like to wear a lab coat to protect their clothes underneath and also to protect their bodies. And of course, whenever we're working in science, we want to wear shoes. So go ahead and put your shoes on. And shoes help to protect our feet. All right, you can all sit back down. Now I have a book to read to you. It's called I Use Science Tools. We already learned about some science tools from our Brainpop Jr video. Let's keep growing our knowledge by reading this book about science tools. All right, this book is called I Use Science Tools. It's written by Kelly Hicks. Now, you can find this book on Epic. So if you would like to reread this book at home, I encourage you to do that. I use science tools. Are you ready to use science tools in the science lab? As you work, use a pencil to write down what you learn. Oh, that's something new that Annie and Moby didn't talk about. Yeah, we of course we want to record what we learn. So we would need to use a pencil. A hand lens makes small things look bigger. I remember learning about that from Moby and Annie too. And here's another example of what a hand lens could look like. If it is very tiny, use a microscope to look at it. Did you know that a microscope can help you to see things that you cannot see with your naked eyes? That's right. So if you wanted to look at, for instance, germs, you could see them under a microscope. We can't see them with our naked eyes just looking around us, but we could see them if we looked inside of a microscope. Pretty cool. A camera takes pictures of what you see. Use a ruler to measure how long something is. I remember Annie and Moby talking about that too. A scale shows how much something weighs. Now, this is a different type of scale, right? We saw a few other scales in our Brainpop Jr. video. Measure liquid in a beaker. Look, here's a beaker. We just turned ourselves into a beaker. The beaker we turned ourselves into looked different than this one, but this is also a beaker. They come in many shapes and sizes. A timer counts down time. I bet many of you have a timer at home. Science tools make the work easier. Now show what you know. So how do tools help you in science? Can you think about that question? When I say go, I want you to either tell somebody near you how tools can help you in science, or you can talk into your hand to talk about how tools help you in science. Okay, ready, set, go. One, two, three, eyes on me. So our time is up, but I was thinking about all the ways that tools help us in science. And my goodness, tools help us in so many ways. Tools help us to measure things. Tools help us to observe things more carefully. Tools help us to keep track of what we're learning about, right? Like when we use a pencil to write down what we're learning. Okay, now for our next question. Why would you need to use a microscope? Do you remember what a microscope looks like? I'll show you. Let's go back to that page that talks about a microscope. Here it is. If it is very tiny, use a microscope to look at it. So why might we need to use a microscope? I'm going to reset the timer. And again, I want you to share out either to somebody near you or just write into your own hand how we might use a microscope or why we might use a microscope. What was the question? Let me look again. Yeah, why would you need to use a microscope? Okay, so either whisper that into your hand or tell somebody near you. Ready, set, go. 1, 2, 3. Eyes on me. All right. So I bet you said something like this. I bet you said that we would need to use a microscope to look at something that's really, really, really tiny, something really small, like maybe germs or things that we can't see with our eyes alone, with our naked eyes. Okay, our last question from this book. If you were a scientist, what tools would you need? Well, guess what? The author of this book must not know that you are a scientist. So instead, let's answer this question. Since you are a scientist, what tools do you think you might need to use to explore the world around you? Think about that question. In just a moment, we'll share. Again, share with someone near you, or you could even just talk right into your hand. Ready, set, go. Stop, look, and listen. All right, so I was thinking of lots of examples. One thing I was thinking is perhaps, I bet, we will be using a ruler to measure things. Did you say that too? Thumbs up if you did. And then I thought maybe we might use a measuring cup. Maybe we might use a beaker. Maybe we might use a hand lens. We could possibly use a magnet. These are two different magnets. Ooh, what about this one? We didn't learn about, did we learn about this? I think we learned about this a little bit in our Brainpop video. Does anybody know the name of this? This is a thermometer. We might use a thermometer to see how hot or cold something is. Okay, there are so many tools that we could use in science. All right, in just a moment, we'll play a little game. But before we play that game, let's do another quick movement activity. So again, stand up, push in your chair, and stand right behind your chair. I'm going to show an object. I want you to try to name it. And then I want you to turn yourself into that object. Are you ready? Okay, here's our first science tool. Here we go. Our first science tool. What is this called? Call it out in 3, 2, 1. It's a ruler. Turn yourself into a ruler. Okay, one more. Just one more and then we'll start our game. Okay, I'm going to hold this up. What is this? What is this science tool called? Call it out in 3, 2, 1. A hand lens. It's a hand lens. Can you turn yourself into a hand lens right now? That was fun. Okay, go ahead and sit back down so that we can start our game. All right, now it's time for a game called Name That Tool. I am going to show you some real life science tools and I want you to see if you can name them. Let's take a look at our first tool. Oh, look at this tool. Does anyone remember what this tool is called? I'm going to count down from 3 to 1. By the time I get to 1, if you know the name of this science tool, call it out. 3, 2, 1. If you said scale, you are correct. This scale has a special name. It's called a balance scale. Let's try using it. So the reason why this is called a balance scale is because you need to have both sides be balanced to know how much something weighs. So let's see, just first, let me show you something. I have here a magnet and a shell. Which do you think is heavier? The magnet or the shell? Call it out. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's find out. Now, if it's heavier, do you think that it will drop down or raise up the side that's heavier? Yeah, it will drop down if it's heavier. Gravity will pull it down. So let's see. Oh, the magnet is heavier than the shell. Okay, now, if I want to find out the weight of the shell, what could I do to find that out using a balance scale? Well, something that we could use are measuring weights, but I don't have them with me. So you know what? Scientists are very inventive and scientists think of solutions to problems. So the solution that I came up with was, well, I was thinking, well, I need something that is going to be, that I have like a lot of, and that will be the same weight. So I was trying to think about what I have around my house, and I have paper clips. So I thought I could use the paper clips to measure how heavy this shell is. Let's see how many paper clips would be the same weight as that one shell. Count with me, ready? And when we see that the scale balances out like this, we'll know that the weight of the shell is equivalent or the same. It has the same weight of that many clips, paper clips. Here we go. Count with me as I put them in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do you see it start to move? 10. It's not quite balanced yet. Almost there. 11. It seems like the shell is the same weight as 11 paper clips. All right, let's see what our next science tool is. Here it comes. Okay, take a good look at this. Think about the name of this measuring tool. And when I count down from 3 to 1, I want you to name this science tool. 3, 2, 1. You're right. This is a measuring cup. It looks very similar to a beaker. The only difference is that a measuring cup has a handle. Let's see what our next science tool will be. Here it is. All right, let's see if you can name this tool. I'm going to count down from 3 to 1. When I get to 1, call it out if you know the name of this science tool. 3, 2, 1. Did you say thermometer? Say it again. thermometer. That's right, a thermometer. What does a thermometer do? What does the thermometer measure? A thermometer measures how hot or how cold something is. So if we take a close look at this thermometer, it will tell us the temperature right now. And the temperature right now in the room that I am in is 71 degrees Fahrenheit. Here in the United States, we use Fahrenheit to measure the temperature in degrees. We measure in degrees in Fahrenheit. Throughout much of the world, they measure temperature using Celsius. That's what that letter C stands for. So we would say here in the United States, we would say that the temperature in this room is 70, oh, it went up a little, 72 degrees. Can you see that? 72 degrees Fahrenheit. 71, 72. Okay. Let's see what's next. What will our next science tool be? Let's see here. Okay. Here's our next science tool. Can you name this science tool? I'm going to count down from 3 to 1. By the time I get to 1, see if you can name it. 3, 2, here's another one too. 1. Did you say magnet? You are correct. These are all examples of magnets. I bet you have magnets around your house. Now, what does a magnet help us to know? Do you remember? A magnet is attracted to a certain type of metal called iron. So if I wanted to find out if these tweezers have iron in them, I could hold them up, I could hold a magnet close to it, and if the tweezers are attracted to the magnet, if they stick to the magnet, then I'll know that it has iron in it. Let's see if it works. Look at that. Do the tweezers have iron? Yes, they do. Let's try it with this magnet. Should work with all of them, right? Yep. And with this magnet, now this magnet has plastic on the outside, but on the inside, there's a magnet that probably looks something like this. So let's see if it works. Oh, it worked. Okay, what about, I'm going to take that shell back out of our scale, our balance scale, and let's see if there's iron in this shell. Make a prediction. Do you think that the shell will be, do you think that the magnet will attract the shell, or that it will stick to the shell? Do you think that the shell has iron in it? Okay, let's find out. No. You see, I'm not able to pick up the shell with the magnet, so I know that the magnet does not have iron in it. All right, thanks for playing that game with me. Now, for our final activity, we're going to do an activity sheet. It's called Tools That Scientists Use. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay, so here is what our activity sheet looks like. It says Kindergarten Science Lesson 2, Tools That Scientists Use. Directions: match each science tool to its name. If you are learning from home, you'll find this sheet in your Google Classroom. If you're in school, your teacher will hand it to you. Okay, so let's get started on this sheet together. Pull it up here. Okay, here's my copy. And remember, the first thing we do is always the same. We pick up our pencil and write down our name. So I'm going to write Mrs. Miller, starting with a capital or big letter, because all names start with a capital. I'm going to write today's date, which is September. For me, it's the 16th. It might be different for you. Okay. Now, I need to match each science tool to its name. So, oh my goodness, these are big, long words here. This one even has 2 words. Do you think we can figure out what these words say? I bet we can. Let's see if we can remember the names of these pictures, the names of these science tools. I'll do the first one with you. This one here. Do you remember what this one is called? We turned ourselves into this earlier. It's called a, call it out if you know, beaker. That's right, it's called a beaker. So let's make the first sound in beaker. Let's see here. Okay, the first sound in beaker, make that sound. B, 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 b. Do you remember what letter makes the b sound? B. Like in ball or in bat? Call it out if you know. 3, 2, 1. B. B, that's right. B makes the b sound, like in the word beaker. So let's see if any of these words make the b sound at the beginning, like in the word beaker. Okay, let's see. This starts with, right? That's the letter H. I know that that makes the sound. And this starts with S. So that can't be beaker. This letter M makes the sound. Nope, that can't be beaker. This letter R makes the R sound, so that can't be beaker either. Here's the letter B. It makes the B sound. Ooh, could that be beaker? Let's see if there are other sounds in this word that sound like beaker. Beak-er. Beaker! We found it! So now, I'm going to take my marker here and I'm going to draw a line from the picture of the beaker to the word beaker. Would you do that too? And then when you're finished, I want you to do the same thing for each of these pictures. Name it and then match it to its word. If you finish early, you can talk about the job of each science tool. What are ways that scientists might use each science tool? And then last but not least, as a bonus, see if you can find science tools at home and start using them to explore the world around you. Now that you know that you're a scientist, you're not just a scientist right now, you're a scientist all the time. So start looking at the world as a scientist. You can go ahead and start experimenting with different tools. I bet you have a ruler at home, and I'm willing to guess that you also have a magnet. So go ahead, see if you can use a ruler to measure an object, or a magnet to check which things around your home have iron in them. That could be fun, right? Thanks so much for learning with me today. I hope you enjoyed this science lesson, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye, scientists.